Welcome to the Healthy Perspective Podcast with your host, chiropractor, entrepreneur, mentor, and author, Dr. Chris Bowman. He'll break down and extract the secret sauce behind his own success and the success of some of the top leaders in every category and from around the world. Get ready for your weekly mental adjustment because shift is going to happen.
What's up, everyone? Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Healthy Perspective Podcast. Today, you are going to be encapsulated into this conversation. It's going to be an amazing talk with Clint Davis. He's an entrepreneur with a passion for storytelling and preserving the past. As the CEO and founder of capsll.app, Clint empowers others to save their histories and pass on their legacies. Clint, thank you so much for joining me.
Chris, so good. I mean, just chatting pre-show, such a good convo. We could go for hours today, right?
I fear that might be a problem for us. We'll just have to bring you back. That's all.
Yeah, get your calendar. Start canceling anybody else for your day. Let's just
right. We'll do this one for a few hours. Well, so for those of you that haven't heard, I hadn't heard before I met Clint. There's an app coming out, and I think he said in a few months, 6 months, called Capsule.
Yeah.
About 6 weeks. Yeah, called capsll.app. And it's focused around sharing stories and pictures and videos with people that you want and owning your content, kind of like early MySpace, Facebook, all of that, sort of deal before it became political, before it became, knowing that you weren't going to own your own stuff. And Clint decided, I'm gonna do something about it. Clint, why don't you just go ahead and start kind of from the beginning? Like what were the different stepping stones to get to developing Capsule, the idea, the purpose, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks, man. I love that you bring up MySpace. I mean, that's a real blast from the past. Right? You still got a MySpace page? You threw it out there like you were kind of affiliated to it, kind of attached to it.
I probably do. I just remember spending so many hours coding and making that perfect song and all that stuff.
Yes, the song, of course, and the pink Lumo lighting, and no, it's crazy stuff. Yeah, I was actually a radio host on a few different big commercial stations in 4 different countries over the course of 17 years. And when it finally came to settling at home here, originally from South Africa, but settling at home in Austin, Texas, I guess it was an age thing as well. I'm 42 now, and I started realizing, the way that my wife and I are, the people that we've become, our kids will know this version of us, but they won't know how we became these people. There were a lot of experiences through that career and through our moving to different countries, really following what we felt God had for our lives, because that's really been the major director in our lives, whether you're a person of faith or not, doesn't matter. I love to share with people about the journey, because I think you should be on a journey to belief of some sort. But I realized that in order to share who we are now, this version of us and how we became this, we really had to include a lot from our past, the struggles, the hard times, the victories. So I set out to do a private podcast for that and realized that I wanted to put pictures up. I wanted to put audio up and video up, and I had all this stuff, and I wanted to create more, particularly in first person. And so what I quickly realized was that there just wasn't a space to do this and to put this sort of content up. And I didn't want my story to get lost. I then thought about my grandfather, who was an orphan and became a very high-powered CEO back in the day in South Africa, and how much I'd love to hear his stories and insights now that I'm doing business and now that I'm old enough for it. And unfortunately, he passed many years ago, so I don't have that. And it became very apparent to me that in a digital age of us having all these options to put digital content up there, we've done a really, really poor job at actually saving our history in a way that we can pass it on to future generations. Chris, you think about the wealth of knowledge, the wealth of insight, the wealth of history that needs to be passed on, and how we can really boost the next generation and the generations to come with that wealth. We always think of wealth as money and passing down that sort of aspect of it. And we speak a lot lately, particularly about inflation and what it means for the next generation. Well, what about the pure, raw story of your life that there's value to, and that those to come will have value from? And so it stemmed out of that really started working on this just over a year ago with two co-founders, friends that we've been friends for over 40 years collectively. We've all lived in different countries and
Wow.
We've had an amazing time founding, haven't had the issues of usual startups. But if I have to lay out the massive heart behind it, it's twofold. Legacy, so that people can leave their stories for future generations. But secondly, in leaving your story, you start to realize the value of your life, and you start to realize that every person has a story and every person has value. And so I think there's something that we can really add to the fabric of humanity through something like this. And the big overarching idea for us worldwide is to recapture the meaning behind digital content. We've seen 8 to 10 years of social media platforms, and bless them, we can honor them for what they've done, because we wouldn't be thinking of a platform like this without them. But it's astounding to me that nobody stepped up and gone, you know what, that was version 1.
Yep.
Let's rebuild what those medias can look like, and let's build version 2. And so we're really focused on recapturing what has been lost, in the sense of taking 30 pictures to find the perfect one, to being in a place where you go, why did you take that picture? Who were you with? What's the memory? What do you want to type on this to remember that, to draw people in? How do you want to share it? What's the lesson you learned there? What was that moment like?
Yeah.
And actually recapturing that meaning behind that content.
That's amazing. And the discussion that we are having beforehand, we probably should have just recorded that too, just as a bonus.
That always goes like,
but just thinking about the delicacy, or I guess, yeah, the delicate nature that our world is, and if COVID did anything, it revealed how delicate our culture, our connectivity, our everything is. Where we have a little microscopic bug that goes everywhere and changes everything from loving Instagram and Facebook, to now people leaving in droves because of politics, because of friends, because of all that stuff. And then not only that, but on Instagram and Facebook, if you're a business owner, that the name of the game is drawing your prospects from social media onto your own email list, or those sort of things. So can you kind of speak to how Capsule is going to be different for us as far as owning your own content, or the delicacy of promoting ultimately what matters, rather than the influence of paid ads, the influence of politics, and all of that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot in there. We could go for a few hours just on what you just said. There's so much in there. But the thing is that this is exactly how aware we are all becoming of our digital content. This is how aware we're becoming of a space that we kind of, in a sense, we're very naive about, and are still only learning the ropes of it. And so I think the one thing that we're in beta testing right now, and the one thing that I really love seeing all our testers do, is that the comments we get about how peaceful it is to be on the app without advertising. It's just, and it's not a thing you're immediately aware of, but it's a thing that if you scroll through your Instagram, and we're not direct competitors to Instagram or Facebook.
No.
We're building something new and different.
Right.
But they're a great example because they're the ones everybody uses.
Yeah.
And so if you scroll through your Instagram, you will feel tired. The way your brain is activating on that content, with ads coming through, with anybody being able to comment from anywhere, and you are defined by their comments. Someone who doesn't know you, right, can just call you out and say whatever they want.
Right.
It's actually you'll feel drained, you'll feel tired. On Capsule, without the ads, without the comments, without the likes, we have none of that. Nobody can validate anybody based on their content.
It's huge.
It just feels like you're left with all this headspace, and it's really quite refreshing, really quite nice. Now, what we've designed is everything from a user human perspective. So while we are a company, while we are a for-profit company as well, because there's a lot that we want to do and a lot of reach that we want to do. We're not just like an add-on app where you just change your pictures to look pretty. We're building a new platform here. It's a big deal, and it's tough to do. But one of the things that we realize most is that we have to rebuild trust in this digital space with our users. If there's anything that we're asking users and potential users to do with us, it's not just, hey, come and subscribe. It's not just, hey, come and use our freemium and it's not about that. What we're asking you to do is to trust again, trust us, and we are putting everything in place to try and help you do that, because we see ourselves as users as well, and we want to use the app. And that means no ads, zero targeting of our users other than app performance and how to make it better for you, but zero targeted advertising, none of that data tracking at all outside of the app. Mm-hmm. People get sticky about that because, oh, but you are tracking. No, we're tracking where you click on the app so we can make it better for you, but we're not tracking where you go, what you like. We're not targeting you with ads, right? And then, as you said, your content belongs to you. So at any point, you can download your content and off you go, no problem. In fact, we've specifically written that all into our user agreements so that it's not just something we're saying, but we are legally bound to you and you to us, that your content is owned by you and there's a shared responsibility. So when we look at the landscape of how digital space is moving, it's moving more into an open web type space, into a space where nobody particularly governs or owns the networks or the digital media on which we are uploading our content. What people need to start realizing pretty soon, though, is that there's a shared responsibility in that.
Yeah.
I, as a company owner and an app owner, can do everything I can to keep your stuff safe and to give you all the mechanisms to trust us and contain your content, and in this case, pass it on. But you have a responsibility too in what you post, in the kind of culture you want on the platform that you use, the ethic. Don't leave your password lying on your desk. That's not called hacking. That's called silly. Mm-hmm. So things like that. And it's a very interesting new space, and we're trying to rebuild trust in that space and help people really find value again.
We were having and again, in our conversation beforehand, we were talking about our faith a little bit. And what this reminds me of is, through COVID, we've seen churches go essentially two different directions. I haven't seen many churches kind of take not the middle road where you're not, on the fence, but like the road of how can I love people? They've taken the sides of my body, my freedom, my, no mask, no this and that and the other. And then there's the other side where it's like you're loving people by doing this and that and the other thing. And it seems like social media is the same. Trump's got his deal coming out. There's Gab, there's Parler, and then there's Facebook and there's Instagram, where it seems like these platforms are almost politicized, where if you're on, you belong if you're on one side or the other. But like there's a church locally where if a liberal or progressive or Democrat or whatever, someone that is been hurt by COVID and is into all of the regulations and those sort of things, goes to one of these churches truly seeking Jesus, this church will not be an agape love to them because of the political beliefs, from the platform, from the altar, from the pulpit. They're talking about, Jesus, John 3:16, this and that. But then also on the other hand, saying, Trump was right, or this and that and the other thing. But then there's other churches that are doing the same thing. You can't come unless you're this and that and the other thing, or you believe this. And I think it's the church has forgotten the essence of, we are here to love and to be a service, not to promote our own opinions or beliefs or whatever. And I just get the sense that Capsule is that middle road of like, I just want to share. I just want to belong. I just want to leave. I just want to socialize and see what my friend in Texas that I can't mingle with, day in and day out, see what they're doing at the park, see what they're doing without this noise of one way or the other. I can't help but see Capsule as that middle ground where it's like, we are the agape love of, in a sense, social media, social media 2.0, where you can belong to one side or the other. It doesn't matter to us. Do your thing, do your conviction. But this is the core of who we are. We are about sharing your memories. You're about owning your stuff and passing down the things that are most important to you. And I think that is huge when you talk about regaining people's trust, because everyone's going into something skeptical. And so here you are, everything's laid out. Everything's like, this is who we are. We're here for you. I think that definitely sets a completely different stage. And I think it's why it's going to be, so amazingly successful. Something that I want to hit on, and that you mentioned briefly before as well, and you kind of were talking around it just now, is neuroscience. You're studying how people are interacting with the app, and you talk about how, all these ads and sponsored ads and whatnot is noise. Can you tell me a little bit where kind of maybe neuroscience is coming into helping develop your app, and how that's kind of helped you understand people to what people really want?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just add 2 cents to what you said previously, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
quickly.
No.
Speak about those platforms being so divisive. And isn't it sad how we have, in a time of pandemic, managed to find more divisiveness than unity? I don't know of a time in history where we've faced something so devastating and been so separated. You know, war, even if you're on different sides, you're still, rooting for peace, you
Right.
know. And
Right.
yet in this whole thing, be it a pandemic, somehow we haven't been rooting for health. We've been rooting for opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And the amazing thing about what we're creating here, well, I certainly think it's amazing, but I'm a bit biased, right? But is that we really focus not on the issues, because issues will change over time. We're focused on
Right.
humanity. The real question is not if you are for the vaccine or against the vaccine, or which side of the aisle you're on, or if you still like this president. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're human. At the end of the day, you want those core things that are true to you. You want safety, peace, belonging, provision, and we feel that at the core of everything, it's the fact that you want to be known. You want to be known. And if people could know the real you outside of your opinion, which is contextual to what's going on right now,
Yeah.
you'd probably find much better conversations discussing these things, and a much healthier unity would come. So we're after that. So you're right. We don't lean left or right. There are a lot of platforms coming out, and we are not a social media platform. We're a human platform.
Mm.
So of course we all have our views,
Sure.
but yeah, we're not. That's not what we're about. So we try to be as pure as possible to that, and try to capture that agree to disagree thing.
Right.
One of the main ways we're doing that is just creating the permission-based sharing so that you can share your content. Basically, you create digital time capsules, and in each digital time capsule, you can put audio, video, pictures, and you can put text with those. But in that capsule could be like about your wedding day. It could be about when you lived in Germany. It could be whatever it is. You could do it however you want, but each capsule you can then give permissions to only the people that you want to see that particular capsule. And you can do that across all your digital time capsules. And so you're controlling who sees your stuff. And those are people that are not just out there with the freedom to comment on you. They're people that you trust and love, friends, family. And so the private sharing is huge to us.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the neuroscience, it's amazing. If I were to sit with you and you were an old school buddy of mine, we'd have a conversation maybe about something that happened in school, and we'd probably end up leaning across the table at each other going, I would not have remembered that if we didn't have this conversation. How many times has that happened?
Oh, yeah.
It happens all the time. And the same neuro approach, when you're creating a capsule in first person and you're actually recording something to yourself or to your future kids. So, for example, I start telling the story of how I met my wife, right? If I said to you, this is how I met my wife, I'd give you the brief outline of it, right? But if I'm leaving a story to my future kids, then you're going to engage in a coached mechanism on capsll app, which is going to tell you, hey, you're about to leave a story of how you met your kid, how you met your wife. Make sure that you speak about what was playing on the radio when you were driving to that date. What song was big? What were two massive world events that were taking place? Where did you go? Did you have dinner? What did you order? Was there a moment that was awkward? That was a moment where you thought, oh, maybe this is the one for me? Or you thought, I never want to see this person again? How many days were there before you called again? And when you engage in this, you're accessing the mind in a way that's going to jog related memories. And those related memories bring back to remembrance other stories of your life that you will then want to capsule as well. And you start remembering your life in its fullness. And perhaps this is just a really selfish thing to build in, but this is really for me because I know how much I've forgotten.
Right.
And I get so frustrated with myself. But now I have a way to actually engage my mind in a way of remembering those memories and leaving a fuller story.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's so different. You talk about it's not a social media platform, it's a human platform. And when you want to put something on, a social media platform, it's like, what's on your mind? It's just like share whatever you want. But having this coached mechanism, it's like you can tell the heart of the technology is we want you to be able to share the full color, the full depth of your experience, because that's going to make sharing with your kids or your grandkids or great grandkids one day just that much better, and it kind of reminds me when I was little, and you took pictures not digitally, and you had, film in, and you had to go print it at Costco or, whatever it was. My mom would always say,
Wait, do you remember, Chris, to interrupt you, remember when you used to get that pack of photos back?
"Oh, it's amazing."
And yeah, well, some of them were, and some of them were like, oh man, my finger was in front of the lens, or
Right,
the
yeah.
flash, there's like a weird, like mystical light character standing in the background. It was crazy.
Right. Yeah. You thought you just captured like that bird perfectly in the sunset, and it's like your fingers over half of it. But I remember my mom used to always say, like, don't just take pictures of scenery. Don't just take pictures of a waterfall or, whatever, because over time that's going to mean less to you than taking pictures with people, and what I'm thinking is, like, this actually combines both, because if you propose to your wife with the waterfall, like, you know what I mean? It's like now that the whole thing comes into, because sometimes when you're trying to take pictures of people, you lose the scenery. You just
Yes.
can't capture it all, and so now you can kind of like get that 360, view. I'm sure smell-o-vision or something is going to come to Capsule one day too, where it's like you get this whole, you know, um, full spectrum of experience, because it's coached, because it's like, okay, now do you remember if you were cold? Do you remember if what smelled like, all that stuff? And I think that's I think it just reveals, your heart and the purpose behind what you're doing, where it's like, we care about your experience, maybe even more than you cared to notice. Back then, like, maybe you reliving it is you're noticing things that you didn't even notice before.
I think that's true. I think a lot of people are going to use the app and go like, oh, wow, actually that moment in my life that I thought was just a throwaway story, I can now see how it shaped me for now, and the decisions I make now and the way I am now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. I'm always amazed at how much we as humanity look forward and neglect looking back. It's really amazing. I sat with a friend a few years ago who I was leading a church at the time, and he said to me, I want you to just tell me how I'm doing. How am I doing in my faith? How am I doing in my discipleship? And he said, because I'm frustrated about this, and next year I want to get to there, and next year I want to get to this. And I just said, man, you're so wrapped up in like where you want to get to. Just look back a year and see how you were at the beginning of the year and how you are now, man. Your life is fuller. You're more balanced. You're emotionally more stable. You have dreams. You have plans. You didn't have these things at the beginning. And if we could just look back and go, you know what? Actually, there's been a lot of value added here. Now, I want to add that value on to my kids and future generations. Let me tell this story, and let me add a picture in there, and let me add something else in there so that they can actually see the fullness of it and go, okay, I'm going to take that value and that truth. Chris, when you think, when we work on Capsule every day, we're thinking about, yes, legacy, passing on legacy. We're also thinking about the terminally ill. We're thinking about what is it like for a mother who is dying of cancer. And I've got a friend who went through his exact story. She passed away from cancer and left behind her husband and her 10-year-old daughter. And she left a few letters to be opened on her daughter's wedding day. But how much more if she had Capsule, and she could have encapsulated her whole life and left her insights and her ideas and her thoughts to her daughter for one day. What about the military when they're going off to serve? We're going to have time delayed capsules so that they can only be open at a certain date. So if they get back, they can delete that. But worst case scenario, there are their thoughts. There is their life. We think about artists being able to own their own content. They'll be able to even NFT it on our platform to protect it and distribute it.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. For the techies out there, I'll just tell you, we built for blockchain. So we're good.
That was exactly my thought. You talk about this open source. I'm like, okay, yeah. I could see where. I like it.
We're having fun, man. We're breaking a lot of boundaries and getting it out there. And we're just excited. We're excited to get it into the hands of our users, and excited to, all the things we talk about, all these applications and everything are wonderful, but it only means anything if somebody actually uses it and goes, you know what, I see value in this.
Yeah.
And so always, our key ethic, our key moral in the company is person over project. We will not make any user the project. We will not make any person the project. The person is the most important thing. The project must be built for the person, not the other way around. So I
love it. One kind of last, segment of conversation that I think would be awesome to have, just kind of for my audience. I built this podcast originally because I have a book coming out next month And I was just trying to raise, awareness and whatnot for that. I was totally naive, just kind of a God thing. And I've ended up like, I don't even care if I have a book coming out anymore. Like, I love having conversations with people like you, and just a general podcast experience. I don't like parties. Like, I don't like going to places with a bunch of people outside of church, really, because I feel like I have such shallow conversations, but here I can get in, tell me your life story, the most important things to you. We can have a conversation, and then it's like, all right, let's catch up. Let me know how I can support you, later. So I love being able to have an intimate conversation, like this. I think so kind of going back to my audience, my book is kind of focused on like living a life with purpose and with vision and with creativity and neurologically in a state of ease. And I think a lot of people, especially during COVID, we're talking about the great resignation, all these people leaving their jobs because they're tired, they're bored, they're fed up, they don't want to be controlled anymore, they don't want to have any more compromises. Did you have like a full-time job and whatnot that you were doing before this that you left to then start creating this? And if you did, can you kind of go through like maybe that story, just a little bit of what it was like to leave something that even maybe was good for something that's ultimately great, for something better than what you were doing?
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. What a great question. And yeah, congrats on the book coming out. That's a lot of work and a lot of steps towards that. So,
It was.
what's the title? What?
It's called Perspective: Rewire Your Brain for Success and Abundance.
Ooh, I'm getting it.
Yeah, I'll send you one.
Yeah.
We'll
That's
trade.
awesome.
I'll get beta access to Capsule, and then I'll send you a
Yes.
book.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Man, I love the topics you listed in there. That's awesome, dude. I really celebrate people that are doing something of meaning right now. It's very easy to fall on the other side of the spectrum and just go, oh man, when are we going to get through this? And, this is wearing me out. And,
Right.
but I feel like there's a lot of great innovation that has come out of COVID. We don't have to applaud and celebrate and love COVID or whatever, and you can stick to your views of whatever. But at the end of the day, there's a lot that's being birthed out of COVID that has so much value.
Yeah.
I'll just tag on quickly that when it comes to church, because you mentioned church, it is a massive space for us. We think about how church history was stored and saved for all those years. We're not really saving church history well right now. And so this actually gets into the hands of the people, and we do want to speak to churches, and we do want to have relationships with churches, because we recognize that people who attend church or subscribe to any faith really recognize that there is most likely a higher power, right? And that they recognize that there's a value in humanity, and they recognize that there's purpose here. And so these are the people that we want to capture their stories. And when we speak about church in particular, you think about testimonies, think about prophetic words, think about things that are getting lost, that you can't recover, that you can't find. Oh, where did I put that? Oh, what did that mean? Well, now you can actually capsule all of that personally for yourself, or we do actually have a public feed too. So, you can actually put encouraging things on the public feed. And so I love this next question, though, because we're getting away from product and we're talking about humanity. And I love that. I love talking about humanity. So when we speak about big changes and big moves, the answer is, just before starting Capsule, I was actually producing podcast with CEOs.
Okay.
As I said, my background is radio. My other background was high performance driving instructor on racetracks.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a BMW M3.
Oh, nice.
Manual transmission that I've been wanting to track. I haven't yet, but because being in Southern California, I mean, I jump up to 40 miles an hour to the car in front of me and sit in traffic. But anyways.
Yeah. Well, at the moment, at 40 hours an hour, it's a red light, traffic light to traffic light. It's costing about $50.
I know, it's the worst.
Yeah, so I had that job in the day. I had the radio job at night. It was pretty good. But the shift from career didn't actually happen in order to come into Capsule. I had very much lived the best careers I could have lived. In fact, when Capsule was birthed, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. I was really at the point of, I just don't know. I don't particularly want to get into radio again. I don't, the driving thing's really got a time limit on it. I really wasn't sure. And, you've heard me mention a couple times, I don't mind what faith you are, but it's good to be on a journey. And for me, for me, I'm a Christian. For me, I take these sort of things to God, and I am so grateful. I'm so grateful that this is not a hustle project that we're trying to do. This is not a let's become billionaires project. This is a project of within my own soul. I'm so grateful that I have purpose and that can drive towards something material, and then that something material can help other people. But I will say that the journey has not been void of massive decisions.
Yeah.
And we left South Africa in 2008, my wife and I. It was a massive decision. Now, we were very naive at that point, so it didn't feel that big. In hindsight, it's big. You know, we lived 6 years in the Middle East. It was not easy. It was not glamorous. I lived for 2 years on the verge of going to a Middle Eastern prison just because of the recession hitting and the banking system being very antiquated and no rescheduling of debt and Sharia law determining that you will be in prison until your debt's paid. Well, hard to do that while you're in prison. So, and there are a lot of people that had very terrible stories along those lines. And then did my degree from the Middle East in theology. And so that was really great to see, live in that space while studying that. You know, and then gave everything up. Once we felt settled there, we felt God calling us to Australia, and we ended up moving there to help a friend who, as I said earlier, his wife passed away from cancer. We ended up leading their church for 2 years, but a very sacrificial move. We never wanted to go to Australia. We never had that in mind. It was not part of our plan, but we did. We moved there very quickly to help them, but purely on what we felt God is putting in our hearts. And then really came to a point of going, well, I don't know what's next, Lord. Like, our visas are running out here. And we'd entered the green card lottery a few years earlier, actually only because the guy that the friend that we were helping in Australia now, put us forward as a reference. And I mean, how crazy is this full circle? I mean, it's easy to look back on stories and go, oh, well, that seems to be something. But once you start getting so many coincidences that line up with your conversations with God, it's really hard not to have faith. I've got to be honest. Like, Capsule is not a Christian company, and it has no slant towards a particular faith. But I have to separate myself from the company, right? And those are my beliefs. And so at a 0.73% chance of winning, think a 0.73% chance of winning the green card lottery, after lawyers had told us that we will never live in the States, we don't have the money, we don't have the education, it just won't happen. We won that green card to enter the States. That is God. Now, here's the kicker. For over 10 years, I've been telling friends, I know that God needs us in the States, but he'll have to do it through something miraculous like the green card lottery. I'd said that on record for and that's what happened. I mean, I don't know how to line that up and explain that to somebody and go like, look, I'm not trying to tell you have to believe what I believe. I'm just telling you this is a story that I've had that is miraculous and proves to me there's a higher power, and I'd love you to have similar journeys. That's really all I can tell you about my faith, you know. And so we moved to LA. We thought Los Angeles was a good space for us because we were both in entertainment, and we didn't understand the intern system in America. And so all the beginner jobs, entry-level jobs that we thought we could pick up were going to interns. And so we were left stranded without income. And that led us down a road of a year and a half to massive PTSD, honestly, full suicidal thoughts. I was thinking, you know, I'll send my wife back to South Africa. I'll take out a policy. I'll take my own life, and then she'll be fine. This comes after 2 years of leading a church, preaching every Sunday, counseling almost every day, like massive identity tied into that part of my life. And there's a word of warning there about having your identity tied to what you do, right? It's really problematic. And so really hit the bottom of the barrel. And there's a lot to talk about in that whole journey, and how when hope is gone, how brutal it is. And you know, understanding depression, how I'd never understood it before. Always just told people, oh, shrug it off and move on, man. What's the problem? And it's just not that easy. It's very, very tough. And I think, so we eventually escaped to Austin, where friends invited us to have a look and seemed like a great place to make a stand. And now it has our heart. So Austin, Texas is our home. And actually, we became American citizens 3 weeks ago. So
amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, isn't that amazing story. Yeah. So super grateful for that. But my point is this, that the journey, I've got to look at the journey and go, is this something that I can praise myself for and go, oh, look what we've accomplished, look what we've done. And truthfully, I only feel pride and separation from my own humanity and heartbeat when I do that. What I choose to do is look at it and go, wow, the empathy I've learned,
Mm.
the way I treat people now compared to then. I had a cancer battle last year, halfway through founding this company, and that changed things as well. You realize your mortality and you go, okay, wait, what's really important to me? Capsule, this is something that a founder should never say. Like Capsule is amazing. The app is amazing. Everybody listening, I hope you get it. I hope you trust us. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be world changing. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, when I'm standing in the shower being diagnosed with testicular cancer, I'm not thinking about Capsule. I know the guys will run with it and I know that they'll build it. I'm thinking about time with my wife. I'm thinking about our journey. I'm thinking about stories. I'm thinking about the kids we haven't adopted yet but want to adopt. Those are the things I'm thinking about. And so that really becomes the heartbeat of every other pursuit. And so the heartbeat of this is your life, your stories, your meaning, and treasuring that, So yeah, there's a lot of decisions that have been made along the way. It's the long answer to your short question.
No, that was an amazing answer. Yeah, Clint, I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for your vulnerability, sharing your heart, and really, you can tell in the way that your product's designed that it's just a representation of everything that you've learned, from life going into here's distilled into here's what's most important, and I think that's kind of like the heart of Capsule as well. It's like we've had some good times, some bad times, but ultimately here's who I am and here's what's most important. And I think you're able to share that here. And I think we should have probably many more conversations about many more different things.
But before you run off, let me just ask you, just in return, I mean, I spoke a lot about myself there. I know we pressed for time a little bit, but you mentioned a lot of topics in your book, very, very human focused. What got you to the place of wanting to speak publicly and write publicly about those topics in particular? Because each of them are massive.
Yeah.
But you've got a lot in there.
There is a lot in there. Yeah. I mean, in 2019, well, so I've been a chiropractor since 2015. That's when I graduated school. And I've known from a very early age that I wanted to be a chiropractor. And God, just shared a promise with me when I was at the University of Montana at Crew in the underground classroom, or whatever. He had seniors come up, the leader had seniors come up and just share their 180 story. Where were you when you came in, and then who are you now? And I remember a guy walking up there, his name's Robert, and he wanted to be a dentist with all of his heart. I don't know how you get so passionate about dentists, but he was applying to anything related to dental, after school, before he got into dental school, anything from the lowest level of just making dentures or molds or, whatever, all the way to up, dental schools. And it was getting rejected everywhere. And he's like, there's no way I have a passion this strong for something so, I don't know, unglorious, like working in people's mouth, without God wanting me to be there and do this, but I'm not getting in anywhere. This doesn't make sense. And God just hit him and said, like, you haven't surrendered this to me. Like, it's something that you want to do. It's something that you feel called to do, but you still haven't. And so, so he just gave it up. He's just like, all right, Lord, I this is in your hands. Like, if you don't want me to do this, I can't imagine you don't, but send me where you want me to send. And literally that next week, every door is open. He had the pick of the litter, whatever job, whatever school he want, so it's kind of like like God was waiting for that handoff, and it hit me because I was sitting there. I was on a one-way track to chiropractic school, literally no plan B. I was taking 22, 23 credits at a time that just try to get there as fast as possible. And I realized I never did that, even though the calling was very strong for me. And so in that chair, I can picture exactly what chair I was sitting in. I said, Lord, like, I surrender this. If this isn't something that you want me to do, you're gonna have to be very clear where I go to from here, because I have no plan B. I literally have zero other knowledge of anything else other than anatomy, physiology, chiropractic, all that stuff. And I think the next day I got my acceptance letter to, the chiropractic school, and we started working there. And so the Lord has always promised, like, I will provide for you. It's never something that I've doubted. And so from day one in chiropractic school, very busy, very successful. I rented space in a small little office, and 3 years later, I opened up my own office. I started February 2018, and then fall of 2019, I started getting a little ahead of myself. I purchased a very expensive marketing system. I decided to hire an associate because I continued to see my hockey stick, growth. And it all went downhill. I was
That's part of it, man, right? You take the shot and
Mm-hmm.
hope for the
Yep.
best.
But
And
I
sometimes
took the shot with the wrong intentions. I had this idea of like, I'm going to be this, massively successful chiropractor, and it's all because of what I'm doing. Like, it basically is what the heart was. And
been there.
so I was left with $300 in my bank account and had to fire most of my staff or let go most of my staff because I couldn't, pay them anymore. Ready to give it up. Didn't want to do chiropractic from a business owner perspective. I just wanted to clock in, clock out, clear my mind space. I loved chiropractic still, but I just thought this wasn't for me. I was just about to click accept on a $30,000 PayPal loan. And this is, December 2000, well, maybe November 2019, like
Oh,
right
wow.
before COVID,
Yeah.
was supposed to hit. And my wife comes in and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, this, I can't afford this and that." She knew what was going on. I don't know if she knew the extreme depth. She's like, "Have you prayed about it?" And I was like, "No, but I don't see any other way. Like, there's no way God can work it out." And so reluctantly shut my computer, didn't hit accept, and just let God work. And the next week we had just enough, and that continued for a month or two until we had just enough. And turns out I had been paying way too much in taxes. I told my CPA, this is where I plan my income going. And so we were taking out as much taxes as if I was making $60,000-$70,000 a month when I was making $20,000 to $30,000 a month. So we go sit down and do our taxes early in the year. We found out we had a $30,000 tax return coming our way.
Wow, that's crazy, man.
And so it was God just kind of like setting aside those deposits, like waiting for me to surrender back to his will and his purpose. And once we did, and I was loving chiropractic again for what I was doing, not because of the money and the new patients and all of that stuff, but because I liked relationships with people. And so that was kind of the birth of it all, where it's like, I went through some hard times. I have a story to tell. And then God just kind of revealed one thing after another of like, what? People live like this all the time, stuck in a state of scarcity where they can't think big. They can't think beyond paying their own bills. And it's mainly because they're not healthy. They don't
Yeah.
pay attention to the stresses that are harboring up in their lives. And so that's kind of what the book talks about. It talks about how to get neurologically healthy. And then once you're in that space, how to start thinking bigger with the vision, setting core values so you don't purchase an expensive marketing system that is not good for you. How to create or how to develop that internal purpose where when things get hard, here's how you persevere. Here's why you persevere. And then goal setting and just some clinical skills, critical thinking skills that I think I've learned as a doctor and an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
The very end, the epilogue, kind of just encapsulating it all, to use your phrase,
Yeah.
where it's just like, I think humans are ultimately creative because we have an ultimately creative God. God in the very beginning was creative, and we were created in his image. And if Christians aren't creative, I think we're leaving out a big part of who God is. And I don't think we're accurately reflecting the full spectrum, as best as we can. And so being neurologically healthy, helping living with a vision, with a purpose, will ultimately give you that push to be creative and create your own life instead of just relying on other people, the corporate world, just doing what you're told rather than, creating a life that's not only better for you, better for your kids and people around you.
Yeah, I love it. Couldn't be said better, man. Couldn't be said better. And it's an exciting time. And you're right. This is the time. This is the time to recreate.
Yep.
I agree. And I can hear in your story as well, just like there's been those big decisions are the ones that lead to, okay, hang on, what does this actually mean? Like, what resilience have I learned? What character have I built? These are the things that are important. And it's just so exciting to see the landscape developing in business. You mentioned the church earlier, having massive decisions nowadays at the moment as to how they're going to approach people. And there's a massive reformation. My theological side gets going on that because I'm like, there's massive reformation. We're at the very cusp of the biggest reformation of the church in all of church history.
I believe it.
But what we do well to realize as well is that business is being reformed as well. And entrepreneurs are being reformed. The creative spaces are being reformed. And hence why they pour into books, why there are new apps being developed, all these things, because there is a restoration. And if you watch the news and listening to the rhetoric out there and all that, it's pretty depressing most of the time. But realize this, that there's a whole nother side to that story. There's a massive humanity restoration going on in people's hearts at the moment. And truly, truly, our best years are ahead of us.
I agree. Well, Clint, we are out of time for today. How can people find more about Capsule?
Yeah, well, we're directing everybody to our website at the moment so that you can join the wait list for when the app goes live in 6 weeks to 2 months from now. And that is capsll.app, capsll. Hard to find names nowadays, you know. You find available names, but we love how it's turned out. capsll.app. So that's where you can join the waitlist and you can find out more. There's a whole bunch of details on there. And then obviously our Instagram, we won't be on Instagram forever, but we are on there now. So capsll.app on there. And then feel free to reach out to me as well via our Instagram, or you can contact us through the website too for speaking engagements that I'm doing at the moment, either in person or virtual, and churches as well. We do see that as such an important place. So church leaders, love to have those conversations and see what we can work on together. But Chris, appreciate it, man. Appreciate you so much. Love what you're doing. And world changer, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you for listening to the Healthy Perspective Podcast. To connect with Dr. Bowman, follow him on Instagram @Dr. Chris Bowman. Until next time, make shift happen.